Okay, I guess we'll call this meeting to order.
We'll have to get a gavel down here. We keep having to get more stuff at all of our meetings.
We'll start with attendance here to my right.
I am Jackie Abel from the clerk's office.
Dave Green.
Amanda Moser, clerk's office.
Barbara Jones.
Pete Peterson, Chair.
And Forrest?
Forrest is on the line.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm here.
Great.
All right, fantastic. Well, let's start with our first business item.
So we have a diagram. Forrest, I'll email this to you. We had this diagram in one of our vote by mail project meetings, and I just thought it was so cool that I wanted to share it with you. And I'm not exactly sure where we'll start. Let's start down. We're going to start down at the bottom with the envelope intake and signature verification system.
I'll email it to Forrest right now.
Okay, great. Because well, I guess I'll back up because
start at step 4.
should we? Yeah, start at step 4. Do you want me to start at step 1, way up at the beginning?
That sounds good.
Because then we'll come back to step
It's
6.
Yellow Brick Road, Barbara.
Yes, you need to stay on the Yellow Brick Road. Okay, so step 1, set up election and design ballots. We have contracted with Dominion, and so Dominion is the company that we currently have in our elections, and we're going to continue to work with Dominion, but they're going to design the ballots rather than us creating them. And so then you can see that it just goes across there to the ballot design. And then the ballot goes down to the printing and mailing RFP. We're in the process of doing the printing and mailing RFP right now. We've got bids for the printing and mailing RFPs. We're going to make a recommendation tomorrow about the vendor to get that RFP. And then they prepare the packets and information, and then it goes to the post office. And so then step 3 is the voters get the packets, and then the voters have to complete and return those packets, and then we end up at step 4. And step 4 is going to be the envelope intake and signature verification system. And it's been interesting to me that step 4 is that system is the most complicated of all of the systems here.
Signature verification.
Yeah, it's more than just signature verification, but it's because not only do we have to verify the signature, and you can see in this that it's verifying signatures, but it's a signature that's identified with a voter ID. And so those are on the outside of the envelope that's going to be sent. And so we have to match that up with the voter registration.
And if it doesn't match, it kicks out.
If it doesn't match, it gets kicked out. And so Amanda has done this very clever color-coded boxes over here. And so what's going to happen is if it doesn't match, it's going to go in probably yellow. If it matches, it's going to go in green because it's good to go.
So what's the red for?
If you're not in the voter registration database or other things, you're going to end up in red.
So sort of just so the yellow is like a pending. So if it goes through and the first level of review identifies that it needs additional review or there's issues with it, it's going to go into the yellow. And then, as Barbara was saying, when it's identified for a no count or a rejection, it's going to go into red. So things might stay in the yellow for a little while if they're waiting for a voter to come in and, cure the signature or additional review or something like that. But then they can move from the yellow either to the green to count or red for rejection.
So you will call them or contact them somehow to try to see if they can come in and do it?
Well, so that is one of the extreme complications that we have with the election, and we may be talking to you about that. So one of the issues is, let's say a ballot isn't signed. If we mail out, it's going to be 216,000 because we had an increase in voter registration after the November election. If we get half of those back unsigned, there's no way we can do that. We physically cannot possibly get people to come in and cure. So we're working on a call center. We're going to have at least 4 people in a call center. You know, that's one of the reasons we want to do a test election before then. I will tell you that the Ren Lane test was actually pretty good, because in the Ren Lane election, which you certified last night, thank you very much, 35% voter turnout in a by-mail election, but we had 10% that were returned. So, you know, 10% out of 216,000, is that 21,000 or something like that?
Yeah.
So 21,000, we can't call 21,000 people. And the bigger problem is telephone numbers are not in the state's voter registration database.
And so, to sort of build on what Barbara's saying, voters will, as soon as we identify that there is a challenge with a signature or a lack of a signature, voters will receive a letter from our office with an opportunity to fix that. And one of the advantages of vote by mail is that they have until certification, not election day. So if
How
we
many
receive
days are we
something,
talking about?
Well, it's it's a total of about 5 weeks from the date mailed until certification.
and part of our messaging is going to be really encouraging folks to get their ballots back early, and that's what we're seeing as best practices from other jurisdictions, is they really encourage voters to get their stuff back early, which allows for an opportunity to address any of these concerns. And just to build on another thing that Barbara was saying, another component of the signature verification system is to track when voters return stuff, and this is an important thing that's coming up a lot when we're talking about vote by mail, is folks are concerned that Amanda Moser is going to mail in 200 ballots and that you're just going to go through and accept them. Well, once you see my first ballot that comes back, it's going to reject the other 199. So we are tracking that a voter has returned something and not allowing a voter to return.
So we're gonna.
So we're going to accept the first one
one
we
in.
receive.
Just the way we do now. That's
Yeah.
the current rule.
So Barbara, we're gonna have to don't be the procrastinator for election.
Yes,
That may be something you got a PSA out there. Don't procrastinate, because Americans do procrastinate everything.
I think that's a really good idea. We're going to do a really big mailing on the signatures, trying to encourage people to get signatures. We're the database, and we have to have a separate database because we don't have access to the state's database, which is why this system is so expensive. Amanda and I have added 2 categories: phone number and email address, and then that way we're going to collect that information and build on it, and then we will have some ability to contact voters. We had a mailing the other day that asked for their email address and phone number. I don't remember what that was. It could have been an absentee or something like that. I don't remember what it was.
Have been saving our stuff from the past 2 elections, and when voters vote absentee by mail, absentee by email, absentee by fax, and absentee in person, phone numbers is something they provide on all those forms, but email is something that they provide on the others. So we have saved materials from the past 2 elections and have
Input them or just save them?
saved the stuff so we can harvest them later as part of this project. And I think we'll have some capacity with some of our workers now to do some of that work.
It's all part of the dossier.
Part of the what?
Dossier.
Oh, I see.
So you can see
Been
that
watching
is
DC lately, huh?
the question that you asked, not a signature, is a concern for us, and will
Well, all the
be.
time. That's a good point.
The first year, lack of signatures or rejected signatures by lack of signature is high. Second and third years, it's lower. So I think we need to be prepared for that. We'll continue to talk to you about that.
But the theory is you will try to get a hold of them if there's a...
We don't know the answer to that, Tim. Again, it's going to be, if our estimate is accurate, we're going to have 21,000 returned for bad addresses. So that's one return. We're going to have others returned, and those are bad addresses from the state's voter registration database. There could be other bads that are on us that we need to fix, but then we're also going to have bads that are going to come in without signatures. So we're going to have, possibly up to 50,000 envelopes sitting here. And no, I'm going to tell you right now, we do not have the capacity to contact 50,000 people in 5 weeks.
In the recap, you might want to publicize the fact that people need to make sure that their voter registration is up to date.
Right.
So part of our Vote by Mail project does include a mail out to all the registered voters about 60 days before election, and we have seen both with the Ren Lane election along with one of the political parties does a pretty extensive mail out to registered voters who are registered under that political party, and we do receive a lot of feedback from that. So we are cautiously optimistic that when we do the mail out about 60 days before the election, it will provide voters with the opportunity to identify that their voter registration address is incorrect, and we'll have language in it that if this has been forwarded to a new address, then you need to update it. So we think that there's some steps we can take along the way to mitigate the number of those, and we think that mail out's going to help. We think that our education campaign will help, and we're hopeful that we can take steps beforehand to lessen the numbers and then be very proactive as soon as we start receiving these things back to try and contact the
Amanda,
voters.
where does the mail come? I drop my ballot in the mailbox. Where's it delivered to? City Hall or here?
That back door.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. I wonder how many steps, how many handling things we've got.
We'll,
Back door is it?
that we'll be working with the post office, and the likelihood is that we'll have the post office deliver election return mail. We would prefer it one time this address. That back door, just back up a container, and then we just start emptying out the trays.
One time a day.
Yeah.
Because I just don't go to City Hall and then come in here. Because the chances are you're going to lose them along the way. There's going to be something at the City Hall anyway.
I have a feeling City Hall would probably object to that. I don't think they have a truck big enough.
No, but some people I think are going to drop an envelope, write City Hall on it, and send it down there. Somebody's going to. We just have to drag them over there.
Okay.
Thank you.
So if you look at, we're sort of at step 4 here, and then you see a variety of things. I want to have you take a look at the little pink circle. So the pink circle is showing you that we're working with the state's voter registration database, and this information is, coming from the state. GIS is working on the addresses. It's going into the system, then we're sending it back to the state because we want to tell the state what we did. Here's better data than what you have. So that's one of the little loops, and again, why that section is so extensive. And then at the bottom, then we're going to go to record of who voted, so that also goes to the state. And then at the end, we're back up to the tabulation system. We're at step 5. We're going to scan and tabulate those ballots. And that's happening right over here, this
Where's
system.
the rejection part? Because there are going to be some rejected here.
Yeah, it's not on this. I mean,
This is all positive.
This is high level. This is just the architecture. The detailed parts of it are in some of the weeds.
And I think it's important to recognize, too, that this is talking about the machinery, and it's not specifically the machinery that's rejecting the ballot envelopes. It's actually our election commission that's making that determination.
And the election commission did meet prior to the Ren Lane certification. They made a recommendation to you to reject one ballot, and when you certified, we did reject one ballot that was received after Election Day.
I wanted to note that Ari Croft has joined us here several minutes ago.
Oh,
Took the invitation to ask. do we need more time on the first one? That is, with all the things you're identifying, should there be a asterisk that says, in the first election we tried, we were doing it a week or two early?
I don't think so. I think you already gave us extra time. You gave us extra time. We moved up filing for office. So you moved up filing for office earlier in January, so the end date is sooner. So I think we're
Mail-out ballots is longer.
Yeah.
So I remember all those,
Yeah.
but they were sort of for the normal case, for the what you will need in a steady state, it's adjusted operation. So you don't need any more time for this first one where we think, there'll be a lot more bumps.
So we added an extra week we started our mail out on Monday for this election, so we only have 2 weeks on that. So we're adding an extra week for the mail out, and everything's mailed out in one shot. Whereas right now, we're still each day we're mailing out about 400 ballots. I think that we feel very confident that we will not need additional time before certification. I think that if we identify around election day that we might, I think that we might push certification, and I think that we have a little bit of leeway to do it, but I don't think that we need it specifically. I think that
I guess I was meaning for 18. I was meaning for the first real run.
I think we're very optimistic that we're going to be able to do it in the time frame.
so
Based on the technology, I think that right now, if you look over here, it is a complete manual process. So we are data entering, we're hand pulling ballots, we are putting on the mailing labels, and in 2018 it's going to be a complete process that's automated as far as that work goes. And so I think that we are going to see some time savings. Although we will see an increase in participation, we will see significant time savings by not handling everything. I mean, we handle each thing 10 times before it comes out and 10 times when it comes back in because of our system. And we're going to go down to not handling it before it goes out and handling it once when it comes back.
and it's accurate because we handle it 10 times, is what I'd argue. So, Eric, I'm going to agree with Amanda that right now the front end we don't need more time. The bids that on the RFP told them about a short turnaround. The bidders, they know it's a really short time frame, and so we'll find that out. The crunch time is on election day or before election day when we get all of those ballots back, and if it's 50,000, what do we do with those that are back here? And so that's the issue is do we have enough time to contact as many people as possible that could cure between election day and certification. So if we need more time, it's on that back end. And that's why we had that little debate about bumping certification. But I think we realized that the right way to do it, and I think you all told us, 1 day for certification in the code, no flexible day. And if we have a problem, we're going to come to you and ask you to bump certification a week or two. And right now, we kept it. We're confident.
What's your confidence level about the post office? Are they good?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking. We have worked with the United States Postal Service from the beginning. We invited the postmaster to be on our stakeholders group. We have representatives from the post office, specifically working with envelope design and other elements that can assist with the mail out and to streamline that and to make sure that we don't run into challenges based on envelope design and different things that can slow down the system. And then for the return, if we have really built that relationship and they're aware that but we are also have the Dropbox system, which when we look at the lower 48 and the vote by mail jurisdictions in the lower 48, that is really where they are seeing the increase in returns on the Dropbox instead of by mail. So we think that having worked with the post office for the front end of it and then having the 3 different options for returning it. So you can use the United States Postal Service, you can use a Dropbox, or you can return it to an accessible vote center. It really
We
allows.
use the post office both directions then, really. So is there postage charge both directions? Sending them out and getting them back?
We are covering the cost of mail out for the ballots, and then there is the cost of a first class stamp to return it for the
Oh, okay.
voter,
So that's a vote.
or they have the option
Or drop
of the drop box or returning it to an accessible vote
Part
center.
of the discussion we had when we did this originally was who's going to pay to send it back to
Yeah.
the city. And there's a cost associated if we decide we want to have postage. We pay a huge cost.
Yeah.
And I think we recognize that the investment in the drop boxes was a smart investment because, you know, if we just every year had to pay for the return postage, just about $200,000 each year.
Right.
But we invested in the drop boxes, which is what voters are using best practices lower 48 anyways.
I would say the first time, too, a notice of where all the drop boxes are has to be in there as well.
And I will.
Yeah, we'll give you a little Dropbox tour and talk about those in a second. I do want to talk about Mr. Croft's questions about the post office, and I want to make sure that you understand that our inbound envelope processing system is through Bell and Howell. Bell and Howell is a mailing company, and the stuff I have learned about mail from them is amazing. But the envelopes have an intelligent barcode design on them. It has information that the post office knows about. All of these technology geeks are talking to the post office. The post office is talking to us. So all of this information is very clear on the envelope. It makes it easier for the post office and easier for our machine to read and review. So we are working with the post office very closely.
So they've got good
Hey, Barbara.
automated scanning as well.
Yes, Forrest.
Yeah, I just want to say, tell the committee I have to leave now, but so I'm going to drop off the phone.
Okay,
All right.
thank you, Forrest.
Thanks, Forrest.
Thank you guys. Bye.
So, the Bell and Howell, that's a national company,
Yes, it is.
and so when we printed out the ballots for this special election recently, was that a local printer that we hired for that?
So let me clarify. Bell and Howell is down here on at the very bottom, inbound envelope processing equipment. That's Bell and Howell down here at the bottom. Okay, step number 4. The printing and mailing RFP is up here. That's step number 2. So print and mail. And our currently, this is the one that's out to bid right now, so we don't know who's going to have the bid for 2018. But in 2017, we have a contract with PrintWorks in Homer. And we will tell you about the Wren Lane. We needed 100 ballots. And our Homer printer said, I'll just do those for you for free. So,
Homer printers are ones we've been using for years, have with normal ballots.
yeah.
So they probably want to keep us as a customer.
Right. And so anyway, we're real happy with that. So anyway, that's where the printing and mailing comes from there.
Okay. Well, great.
Any other questions? We just thought this was really a fun diagram.
It is. It's a fun process. I mean, you're going to be very proud when it all works like that.
I'm glad we postponed until 18.
Yeah.
It was a good call.
The 17 that we're doing, yeah, so we postponed to 18. We're doing an overlay of it for 17. We're doing what? Nothing? We used it for that small election as a test.
No, it was a manual by mail election.
Manual.
Right.
So is there any aspect that we're testing out in this coming election here? Is there any aspect of it that we're testing?
Arguably, yes. Number one, this
Census
facility.
box, right?
You know, this is so important for us to be here, working in this facility, understanding how it's going to work for us. If we would have tried to have done both at the same time, I mean, this has been pretty stressful to begin with,
Right.
but with new equipment, it would have been impossible. So this is happening, and everything we do, we're thinking, how is this going to work next year? Now, the drop boxes, I said I'd come back to that, and you can see we've got the drop box out. that is one thing that we are doing this year. We have we have 10 people on our Dropbox team, and we're training them this year so that they'll be ready to do. We only have 4 Dropboxes. We'll have 12 next year. They're in the boxes back
So
there.
that's a test run kind
It
of
is
of
absolutely.
Dropbox familiarity or whatever.
Absolutely. So we have procedures. We have little boxes that they take out every day. They wear vests. They have checklists, and they go out, and there's 2 of them, and they go to each Dropbox, and they open the Dropbox, empty the envelopes, follow the procedures, lock it back up, and then they go to all 4 Dropboxes plus City Hall and Lucent.
Who installs the Dropbox?
Well,
Who will this year?
who will? Well, the Dropboxes are installed this year. There's 4 installed. It's on the website. We sent out a press release. We can forward that to you all.
You received it yesterday.
Oh, you guys got copied on the press
Yeah,
release.
I think
Okay,
I
great.
saw it yesterday.
Okay, good. Alan Kajowski from M&O is doing that for us and has generously done that for us. We do have a little bit of a problem that Alan told us, and so he created the pads and bolted them all onto the concrete pads, but he can't do that on an ongoing basis for us because he has ARTSA funds. And I think it's de minimis for him to have his folks take them around and deliver them. But because all of the boxes are not in ARTSA, he can't continue to do that
So
for us.
they are not going to be installed on fixed pads. They're going to be dropped with this pad as a weight
Correct.
wherever they are.
That is correct. There's no reason to leave these in the elements for
Yeah.
10 months or 11 months when they're used for 3 weeks. They would wear out. They would be
There'll
subject.
also be a lot of tagging going on.
Yeah, that-
Like with the
They're like
train
$3,000 each or
Maybe
something,
get a lot of
3,500 or
truck-
something.
People would put all kinds of stuff in.
you can't get in. You can't put anything
Can't
in
put a
them.
dead cat in
Robert,
there.
you want to speak
No.
to us about downtown? We used to have a problem. You guys would take our conference room. There's none of that going on this time. For the first time in
And so
recorded
we're
history.
meeting here.
But we didn't have the space down there, Tim. We didn't. And they would run from pillar to post trying to move voting counting stuff everywhere. This time we don't have that problem.
You had stuff in 6 different rooms or something, right? All throughout it wasn't even on the same floor. That's pretty challenging.
So one of the other things that we've instituted, Mr. Croft, you asked about some other procedures, and that leads me to believe the moving from 6 locations. We don't have to do that here, and so we've created the Yellow Brick Road, and you all got your lanyards, and so everyone in here knows that you're to look at people, and a yellow lanyard means you're from the public, and a black lanyard means you're with the press. And so when you come
What does
in,
purple mean?
purple means you are an assembly member.
Oh, okay.
Better
So,
put yours on, Eric.
I guess so, right?
so
They're
when
about
the
to go
press
down.
comes in the
Mandate's
door,
coming for you.
everyone knows that the public and the press stay on the Yellow Brick Road. All right, and now ballots are not on the Yellow Brick Road. Ballots are going to be off to the side, and we're going to have a couple of places where on the Yellow Brick Road it's going to be cross stripes with maybe blue or green or something, and that'll mean like ballots are going to go from signature verification. Ballot envelopes are going to have signature verification over here. They're going to cross the Yellow Brick Road into the middle where we're going to open the envelopes. But there's going to be a very specific place where ballots can cross. And then the ballots are going to be in here, and the envelopes are going to get opened. Ballots, envelopes, they're both like this, so you can't identify them. Then the ballots then will cross another cross-hatched mark to the tabulation system.
Flashing lights so that people know that the
Alarm.
ballots are in motion.
Well, you know, we will have security cameras, and Dennis Wheeler has identified the posts. There's going to be 8 security cameras. So that, and then the TV will be over there near the last pillar before the exit sign. So people will be able to see as they're moving. And it's open, so it's helpful that people can see what's happening.
And I don't know how crowded it will be. I don't know.
Don't forget 18's the mayoral election.
And then the last place that ballots might cross the yellow brick road would be if they're coming from, after they're tabulated, then they go into the vault. So remember, the vault is processed ballots only after, and so anything that's on the floor is live. And that's a system that Amanda and I figured out a couple of
Is there
elections
anybody
ago.
watching the meeting other than the person sitting in front of the TV screen with the cameras? Are there people that are roving and watching and making sure the process is working? And are you guys going to be working, or are you going to be watching?
We do both all the time.
Okay.
I don't think you can afford me just to watch.
No.
So we're working and watching.
Yeah.
And we have a great
Solve the
crew.
problem.
You know, they've all signed their oath. They love what they're doing. They, you know, we have a great crew. We have the pick of 650 election workers. Everybody wants to work here.
After the election, you know, free and unemployed, volunteers. It would be fun. Election days are exciting time.
Well, and the fact that we've got a new system and, you know, we're moving into the 21st century with vote by mail, it's got to be exciting to be one of the first employees to you know, handle that first election. It's sort of historic, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited. I think you guys have done a lot of work.
Good job, Barbara.
Thank you. We have a great team, great group. Thank you.
So do we have an exact date for when our sorting machine is going to be delivered?
The contract requires it to be here by the end of June. So we're expecting that by the end of June.
Okay.
Where's that going to go, Barbara?
It goes in the back. If we walk back there on your way out, there's tape lined on the floor so you can see about the size that it'll be. Probably won't be there exactly. It'll be, but in that vicinity.
We have all the power we need.
Well, do you see that cute little sign right there?
That's the reason I asked you.
No, we don't have the power that we need. The electrician has been in and out. They should be done by Friday.
Okay.
Now that says you're going to have 4 outlets. It doesn't look like that box is going to take 4 outlets. So is that box going to be changed out?
I have no idea. That part I stay out of, Tim. I make sure that everybody's doing the right thing with their ballots and on their timesheet, but I'm not.
That box that's there isn't specific to the electorate. That's just identifying that it's going to be in that column.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. All that work you did, all that travel you did to investigate, figure out how things work, it's going to pay off.
I see you got the sprinkler system set up. Do we have any security cameras in yet?
Security cameras are not in yet. Dennis is working on a bid. We've got a couple of bids, and we actually need to pick one, and then they'll get installed.
These people are probably pretty busy with marijuana stores opening up. All their cameras we have to have there.
That's probably not a lot of money.
They're busy.
So, have we finished with the high-level review of the system architecture of the vote by mail?
Definitely.
So, let's go down on B, and we'll talk about the 2017 election update.
Through the chair, I'm really happy to report that we opened early voting on Monday at the Lusac Library and at City Hall, and it's been steady at both places. We've had about less than 200 voters a day at the Lusac Library both days, and around 150 voters at City Hall. Usually Lusac Library is a little bit busier than City Hall, so it's been pretty steady. We have done 3 batches of mail-outs for voters who've requested ballots by mail, and we're over 1,000 on those voters, and they're working on batch 4 right now, putting labels and data entering for batch 5. We have been very steady over there, the significant number that we're still working to input, so we will continue to be very focused on that. We've had increase in voters who are participating by email this year over last year, and we've processed about 196 requests of ballots by email. So it's a great way for voters who are traveling, especially if they're overseas and maybe don't have access to mail coming. It's a great way to still participate in the election. Our supply crew, which is over here sort of in the middle back of the room, have been diligently working. They put together all the supplies for the 2 absentee locations that I mentioned opened on Monday, and you can see on the floor our 122 precinct bags are lined out, and this is a really crucial part of the election because we provide everything down to the paper clip that precincts need on election day, and we have a very detail-oriented crew that makes sure that they have the right number of posters for the number of voting booths that they have at that particular location. So we are diligently working on that, and supply pickup begins next week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So they are in line to complete that project by then. But
Volunteers all trained?
Well, they're not volunteers; they're workers.
Paid workers.
And
Oh,
yes,
paid work? Okay.
Amanda has trained 650 people sitting in this little classroom in the last 2 weeks.
we
We
had,
always get comments, you do such a great job.
thank you.
People are comfortable with you doing it, so thank you.
Gotta get an attitude.
It's one thing that we recognized in 2013 when Barbara and I ran our first election, that part of the challenges that we saw with the 2012 election was we had only had 4 training sessions. There was about 150, 200 workers in each training session, and it's complicated, systematic, step-by-step stuff that we are asking our workers to do. And so we identified that we needed to break it down into smaller training sizes, get everybody in a smaller room, look them in the eye, make sure they're not falling asleep, and understanding specifically what we're asking them to do on election day. So it has been a labor of love because it's a lot more work to do 14 training sessions than to just have.
A lot of people going through 155, which 155.
You know, the other thing is Amanda spends probably about 20, and I may be underestimating that, answering questions. And when you're in the Wilda Marston Theater or the assembly chambers with 200 people, they do not ask questions. But when they're in these smaller groups, they ask questions, and we think that is really good.
Yeah. We're really able to address some specific
Do you
concerns.
have a good return, and do a lot of them come back?
I would say 80% of them come back each year, and we have.
Some we don't want to come back,
Well,
and they deal with
So
those.
one thing that we sort of get to know each other at the beginning of each training session, and I always ask, are there any first-time election workers? And it's usually, less than 5, especially in the chair trainings. In a few of the election worker classes, we had maybe 10 or 15, but, and then we sort of ask, okay, well, who's worked 5 elections? And we kind of work our way through. And a lot of our election workers are we had our longest serving election worker this year has been an election worker since 1960. It's just pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And they're going to be gone.
Well, no,
57
we will
years?
continue to engage them in our vote by mail process, but I will tell you, folks are excited to retire.
Oh, okay.
It's a full day. It is 6 a.m. to 10 p.m.
it is.
And people are really excited about the opportunity to come down here to the election center and work an 8-hour shift, take a lunch break. It's a change, and folks are, I think that we continue to see,
You'll need a lot fewer.
we will need a lot fewer, but folks are, I will say, people continue to retire,
Yeah.
and people are traveling outside, and people feel sort of a commitment to this process, but now that we have had the conversation about the transition, they are supportive, and they are either excited to come work here in the election center, or they're excited for the opportunity to not.
You need about half the number? You need less?
We will probably engage about 60 workers here within the
From a
election.
base of 600?
But Eric, they've also worked the state elections. And AccuVote, the basis of how we count, is a dying system.
Yeah.
So I think it's exciting for these people to get a new system as a feature. Because AccuVote, every year it gets harder for us to get the equipment to keep it running.
Where's
And our
the
election
state?
workers know more than anybody else the challenges that we have with the aging election equipment. So I think you've brought up a very good point. I think that they recognize that it's an unsustainable system to continue to use AccuVote and polling locations as we're doing.
Are
Matt,
we
did
ahead
you
of the
guys-
state, or is the state ahead of us in terms of this process?
We're so far ahead of the state. They've not even
That's what I thought.
not even looking at vote by mail.
Well, the state was here to help
We'll
cut the ribbon.
subcontract
That's
with
that's
them.
the
I know.
only
We'll
help that
subcontract
they've
with
done.
But that's
And-
what my goal has been since Barbara will tell you. I want us to be the subcontractor to run their elections more. Once we get this working correctly.
Full time.
Why shouldn't we be?
Well, so the AccuVote, have we gone through the machines? Are we going to have 122 machines that are going to work this year?
So we did testing. We did testing at the
Oh, good idea.
end of February, beginning of March, and it's part of our procedures that we do every year. As we went through and tested the AccuVote machines, we identified about 11 of the original machines that we had set out to use that had
Here.
anything from errors on the rollers to just, wouldn't function
Did
at
battery
all.
memory cards.
We had less challenges with the memory cards. We've gone through over the last couple of years, and we have replaced the batteries, and we've done some maintenance on our memory cards, and we're trying to focus on using those memory cards instead of our.
But we own those memory
Yes,
cards.
that's correct.
Not the state?
Well,
No, those are ours.
Yeah.
So we don't have problems with those anymore because we bought new
That's
ones.
what we'll do, is sell them back.
I
at
was
a
going to say,
profit.
it seems like a market. We
Right.
recoup
So,
some of
and
the
just
investment.
to sort of add on what Barbara's saying, we own those memory cards, and they're no longer available for purchase, and we have a nice little stash of them.
So the state
Right.
can buy ours at a higher price from us.
Right. We want to talk about the 6th Avenue Jail at the same time.
There you go.
We've got a couple of
What-
snowplow.
What's the deal about that snow dump that you wouldn't let us use?
We're willing to deal, but
There's a cost.
yeah.
Great off time.
And just to sort of build on that part of our election worker training, we do focus, and we continue to focus a little bit more each year on specifically addressing challenges that would come up with the AccuVote machines. And our workers are very trained on how to continue processing voters if they have either a memory card failure or an AccuVote machine failure. We have continued to increase the number of field workers that we have that are able to respond to those challenges. And we are in a position that we anticipate on election day that we will have a handful of problems with either memory cards or AccuVote machines, and we are primed and ready to respond in a timely manner to those.
You got like a SWAT team or whatever? You have a team to go out, or you just got kind of everybody trained up?
So I will just give you a sort of an evolution of how our field workers have worked over the past couple of years. In 2012, and I like to talk about 2012 because it's where we identified some challenges in our system. And so in 2012, we ran out of ballots at over half of our polling locations.
See, we're close.
We only had 12 field workers. So each field worker had about between 6 and 13 precincts that they were responsible for. And when you're trying to react quickly to a problem and you have to react to 6 to 13 different places, that isn't helpful. So we have, in 2013, we had 20 field workers. We almost doubled
Field
the
work is
numbers.
the next step up. So from the people who are watching the
So field workers, field workers have a handful of precincts, and they are sort of the liaison between our office and that precinct. And so if that
I've
precinct,
got to run to a meeting in planning.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Good.
All right.
you're
I've got a meeting in planning.
You can't get out the door.
There.
There you go.
in
Now
2000
I need a black one. I'm using it for
in 2013
Why'd you pick black for the newspaper people?
I think it's perfect.
we
What I
upped
mean.
that number to 20, and now we have 25. And we have two that are specifically, they don't have any precincts assigned, but they just function out of our election center and can kind of assist back up to. And so
Sort of a rover.
yeah, and that's helpful too. A lot of times we sort of will sort of leapfrog things along. So the city hall, election center field worker will run it to the polling location, and then the actual field worker will meet them there and be able to do the specific work. But we recognize sometimes when a field worker has to drive in and then drive back out, it can add time on. So we are trying to be as responsive as possible.
And if you
12
think
a
about
year
this,
that we have all kinds of problems and balances.
Yep.
yeah, it was before Amanda and I started, just to be sure. But, you know, one of
They
the
always
things,
remind us of that.
And I would too if I was there.
one of
We
the
learned
things,
a lot from
Time
it.
for a change,
Right.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
one of the things that I think is really important about, so we've doubled our field workers. You know, I know you said they were volunteers, they're not.
Yeah.
But they're paid $12 an hour.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
$12 an hour for 25 people for, I mean, this is cheap insurance. I just,
Right, right.
it's just a great, brilliant management tool.
It would be nice to be able to bring some of the youth in, either as workers or volunteers or something.
Observe maybe.
We do have a youth election worker program, and high school students, 16 and 17, are able to work on election day. Part of the challenge is our election day does seem to fall when there's some testing, so we have, sometimes it's hard to get students that are able to step away from that, but we do have a pretty, we do have a large number of workers that are students, so we are engaging.
Have you guys thought of an election worker party that is sort of a recognition, given that it's a transition, you're still keeping 10%, but it's
The day
major
before, get them all
in
drunk.
things that
Hungover.
say 49 or whatever, 30 years of law.
We've done some recognition for our election workers in the past. We did a party after the 2016 election. Before we certified, we had cake and juice down at the chambers, and we invited our election officials to be there for certification. And we did another little get together with our election workers as we began to transition to vote by mail, and invited them down, juice and cookies, and sort of had a conversation.
And that's great, but you could do a bigger, this is the, it's not the end, but it
Yeah,
is.
I think it's a great idea. We'll, and maybe we'll invite them all out to the certification again and have a little bit.
Well, I think a citation might be in order for that election worker who worked 57 years. I mean, that's unbelievable dedication.
Right, right.
She's a West Anchorage person.
See what?
Who is it? It's not
Oh,
confidential.
of course. That's,
It's just hard to remember.
Is it? Yeah.
I can pick her out of a lineup.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, thanks for the update on this year's election. Let's go to our next item, which was the passage of our ethics code rewrite last night that passed unanimously. I thought that was
a lot of work.
went well.
We saw a
I hope
couple
we
of
didn't
drafts.
screw it up at the end. A couple of the amendments at the end, I don't know. I thought, I'm still pondering Amy's, but you guys did a tremendous amount of work, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that was on your agenda because it's really occupied a major portion of your agenda for over a year or a year and a half.
Right.
And so I just wanted to make sure that the passage was on your agenda and acknowledged on the record.
Yeah, I remember Patrick bringing that up. I don't know, that had to be at least a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, when we first started talking about it.
We're getting a lot of good updates on things. Getting our records and procedures and stuff squared away. Good job.
Yeah, I can't take credit for.
Oh, you can. You just mean not legitimately.
That's right.
Okay.
I mean,
Let's be
Dee
precise.
Ennis and the
Yeah.
Board
David
of Ethics,
Nesbitt and
yeah.
that board, and Lisa is the staff person for that board, and Lisa actually did some of that drafting, and I will take credit for that. I know they needed help, and
Darryl
she
was
did
helping.
such. Well, I don't think he was involved with the ethics
No.
code though. And then Lisa, I know Dee was running out of time, and she said, "Lisa, can you put these amendments in legislative format?" And they look great last night. I mean, she's a star for that group. And so, anyway, I will take credit for Lisa.
Well, yeah, it was a long time coming. I think someone said that had talked about, Dick would mention that someone had talked about rewriting that maybe a decade ago, and it kind of got lost in the shuffle, and then, so we finally brought it back up to make it a higher priority. And I think the fact that we've cut the size, the number of pages in less than half, I think is a big accomplishment.
Obviously, ethics are the things we think about least.
All right. Well, is any other items? We have an audience for participation. I don't see anyone here.
Is there anyone on the phone that has anything to say? I guess not.
I don't hear anyone.
Guys, thank you.
Well,
You've
I
done
guess-
a fantastic job, and I hope everything goes smooth.
Any other comments? I guess we'll call this meeting adjourned until next month.
Great.
Thank you.
You guys make it look easy.
Actually, you do, and that's the beauty of it.
What is this map? I mean, who do you allow right now?
It's a bit challenging because there has been a lot of folks here with the internet and the electricity, but we do have a procedure that anytime anyone comes into any of the doors, all of our election officials are supposed to right away greet that person and see what they're here for. And then once this internet and electrical work is done, we will have a little bit less traffic through here. And we do have this notification system where all of our workers, you can see everybody has a badge on. And so we are able to identify that they're all our workers, and then we do have the badges for the public, media, and anyone else that's in there.
Can I bring Shannon down and just show her?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
First time voting last election, but she's voting in this before she gets back to college.
She is. Gosh, I should have campaigned.
We are also
I'm going to make you
looking
feel old.
for election workers
Oh.
on election night, and it's kind of a fun opportunity if it's something that she would be interested in. Is she over? It's $12 an hour.
Yeah.
She would get a really rad democracy-themed T-shirt, and it's about 7:30 p.m. till 10:30 p.m.
She's back at school, but
Oh.
but it's a cool idea. Yeah, keep it in mind. It works.
It is. We have about 50 people here on election night. Well, 50 people in here, and then we'll probably have maybe 12 to 20 outside. We want to make sure that we get people to understand the system, and they'll come up and pull up their car at that door, and then we'll have people outside that are unloading. We're going to give them a little treat back there because we know they're going to be waiting in line getting crabby. So we've got some yellow and blue M&Ms that they're going to get. And then once they unload their cars, so we'll get all of these back with the voted ballots, and then we'll have them park their cars, so we'll have held parking. They'll come in, and then we have to distribute all of the stuff. And last year we had did we have 50 people? We didn't, we had about
Probably closer to
40
Are you just
last
concerned
year.
about the ballots then, or are you doing all the supplies and stuff?
There's a few components of their supplies that are critical. The
Sure.
precinct register, the ballots. There's also a red bag that has some secure election materials that haven't been processed yet, so question ballots.
Special needs ballots.
I hadn't thought about that.
How many
Yeah.
doors would be accessible? I mean, do you control access real tight? Or
Well, no,
is there
because
somebody at the door?
on election night,
Yeah.
on election night we'll be fine. We'll have, the yellow brick road will go all the way across to here, and no one except us will pass on this
Issuing
backside.
appropriate,
Yeah. It's a little bit, it is a challenge, but it is, as Amanda said, it is a really fun night.
Any alarms on doors? If somebody were to open a door unexpectedly, would something
Nope.
go off?
So we have this nice blend of a secure space, but also maintaining sort of an open. Transparent election
Public
process. So we do want to make sure that people feel welcome to come in here. But we do have systems in place to make sure that we're identifying when folks are coming in. So it is a nice blend of those elements.
That's great. It sounds like a great plan, good process. We'll see how it all works out.
Yep.
I think we're looking pretty organized.
Well,
Probably
thank
need to
you.
shut this
Yeah,
off.
I need to shut that off. All right. Thank you.